Way up.
Days like that are what keep Dr. Anthony Fauci up at night.
In 2017-18, we had the worst seasonal flu that we've had in memory, about 80,000 deaths and almost 1 million hospitalizations.
So close, no matter how far, couldn't be much more from the heart.
Concerns over the flu. The first day of winter is still a few weeks away, but the start of flu season appears to be here with between 1.7 and 2.5 million flu-related illnesses already reported. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, forecasts suggest that flu activity will continue to rise. There's a 40% chance it will now peak in December, which the CDC notes would be considered early compared to previous years. We are joined at the table by CBS News medical contributor Dr. David Agus. Doctor, good morning. Do we know why it seems to be hitting early this year and what that means for the rest of flu season?
We don't know why flu season happens when or where, but it's happening early. It's clear. It's happening in the southern United States. New Orleans particularly hit. And, 1.7 and 2.5 million people. That's a big number early.
Is it too late to get the vaccine right now for people that haven't?
That's like a leading question.
I know. Well, I haven't.
You're getting it today.
Okay, that's what I meant. Really,
no question about it. Yeah,
okay.
We don't know whether this is going to be an early peak, say it'll peak in December, or whether this is going to be drawn out like last year. On an average year, 125 to 200 people a day die of the flu. So this is preventable, most of these deaths with the vaccine, even though the vaccine hasn't been great the last couple years. This year, the early strain that we're seeing is type B, called Victoria. And that classically happens in February, March. This year is happening early. We don't really know any of these trends and predictions, what's going to happen. But what we do know is it's here. What we do know is it's early. And what we do know is we have a preventive shot.
Right. I will get it, I promise.
Yeah, no. And because you have
I happen to have one.
Yes, I was going to say.
If you do,
give DJ.
We are definitely seeing a higher number of flu cases this year than versus last year.
In today's morning rounds, this flu season is on track to be one of the worst in recent history. In terms of the number of people infected, flu is now widespread in almost every single state, and nearly 10 million people have become ill so far. 4,800 of those people have died.
No matter how far, couldn't be much more from the heart. Forever trust who we are. Nothing else matters. Never open myself this way. Life is ours, we live it our way. All these words I don't just say, and nothing else matters.
Take a look. You see all that red? I mean, how could you not? That should be a red flag about just how bad this year's flu season has gotten. The CDC says influenza is widespread in all but 2 states and Washington, D.C. It's that MAP, that rampant spreading virus, we should be worried about. But in the last week, most of what we hear about when it comes to health news is the coronavirus.
There's growing concern about the coronavirus tonight.
The coronavirus outbreak grows rapidly in China.
This is the epicenter of the virus outbreak.
Like in previous outbreaks of coronavirus.
Screenings for coronavirus are underway at Minneapolis-St. Paul International.
So once you sift through all of that coverage and just take a deep breath, let's bring the focus back to where health officials here say it should be, the flu. Here's Adrian. So that's a lot on the flu, so we'll go to coronavirus for just a second because the symptoms of that are similar to the flu.
Numbers may surprise you. From October 1st, 2019 through January 25th, 2020, the Centers for Disease Control estimates nationwide 19 million to 26 million people had flu illnesses, and 10,000 to 25,000 died from the flu.
Infectious diseases. He's part of the effort to fight future outbreaks. He joins us from the headquarters of the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. Dr. Fauci, good morning. Always good to see you.
Good morning.
First, let me ask you this. Why is this year's virus so deadly?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. As we know, the vaccine this year, although it's always best to get vaccinated, is not the perfect vaccine. It is not, as we would say, favorably efficacious in the sense that we only don't know right now what the efficaciousness is going to be, but it likely is not going to be much more than around 30%. And I say that with some trepidation because I don't want people not to get vaccinated. Every type of protection against the virus with a vaccine is better than no protection at all. So a combination of a vaccine that doesn't work very well and a really bad virus.
So given that combination, Dr. Fauci, what should people do?
Well, the first thing you should do, and again, getting back to vaccination, if you have not been vaccinated, you should get vaccinated. That's for sure. Then if, in fact, you do get infected, if you have what looks like it's going to be a serious infection, don't hesitate to get to a healthcare provider who can get you an anti-influenza antiviral like Tamiflu. This is particularly true for people who fall into the risk categories where complications are common. So if you're an elderly person or you have an underlying disease, you should not wait to get anti-flu medication.
Along with everyone at home dealing with this. But this notion about Tamiflu, you were mentioning that you were on it. Obviously, you're a doctor, it's easier to get. But it's really important for people to consider this at home.
Exactly. And I also treat pregnant women. But in general, the vulnerable high-risk groups that should consider Tamiflu as a prophylactic measure to reduce their risk of getting sick if they've had direct contact. High-risk groups include people over the age of 65, anyone with chronic medical condition like asthma, pregnant women, or anyone with a weakened immune system. Those are the vulnerable groups.
And in the meantime, Jen, we'd heard for years that you have to be on Tamiflu within 48 hours of symptoms, but you've learned something else now.
That's really the old thinking. There was that firm line in the sand about the 48-hour mark. Now there's new data that suggests that even after the first 48 hours of symptoms, antiviral medications like Tamiflu can be helpful. So that should not be a reason to withhold treatment.
Dr. Fauci, is it's been 100 years since that lethal 1918 flu, and you're saying there could be one virus that could be catastrophic.
In fact, the one complete genome that we have from 1918 comes from here. So this is a place called Breivik Mission, which is a little village in Alaska. And in 1918, the Spanish flu pretty much wiped out the whole village. And a lot of people ended up in mass graves. And this guy here, Johan Hultin, He's a virologist who for years had been saying, we might be able to get virus out of those graves. If they were buried in permafrost, you might have good preservation of material. He tried in the 50s, at a time before genomics and amplifying gene sequences. What he needed to do then was actually get a live virus. Couldn't do it. Not possible. Everything's kind of dead and fragmented. So he went back in the 90s on a solitary trip. I thought this was funny. So he carried just one tool, a pair of garden clippers borrowed from his wife without permission. And let me just go back. There they are. Okay. So from this mass grave, via Mrs. Hulton's garden clippers, to the big screen. That's not just a flu genome, that is the Spanish flu genome from that victim, from that mass grave in Alaska. Those A's, C's, G's, and T's are the virus that killed that person and so many others in 1918.